Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. Ernesto is now officially a hurricane and growing stronger at this hour. Ernesto slamming Puerto Rico, more than 700,000 customers without power. Expected to grow potentially to a Category 3 hurricane. The new track at this hour, and we're tracking the storms set to move into the Northeast. Also tonight, the major news on the U.S. economy tonight, the fight against inflation. For the first time since early in President Biden's presidency, inflation now slowing to less than 3%. What they're seeing in prices from groceries to cars, and what President Biden said about the good news today. The race for the White House, Donald Trump on the economy tonight, and taking aim at Vice President Kamala Harris. The attacks again turning personal. And the new poll from Pew tonight showing this is a very tight race. Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump by 1 point. The war in Ukraine tonight, the Ukrainian military attacking multiple airfields inside Russia, taking dozens of Russian troops prisoner. Video tonight showing them in a courtyard blindfolded. 200,000 Russians have been forced to evacuate. The devastating attack in southern Gaza on the eve of high-stakes ceasefire talks aimed at trying to halt this war and get the hostages out, and with Iran's threat of retaliation hanging over it all. Back here in the U.S. tonight, the urgent manhunt for an escaped killer who broke free from guards, where they think he could now be. In Russia, another American under arrest tonight, accused of attacking a police officer at a hotel in Moscow. The search for a missing mother in Virginia. Authorities say her husband waiting 5 days before telling police she disappeared. And tonight here, we remember Famous Amos, Wally Amos, and his delicious cookies.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a very busy Wednesday night. We begin tonight with Hurricane Ernesto barreling up the Atlantic, gaining strength at this hour after slamming Puerto Rico and several other islands. At this hour, Ernesto is heading north into warmer waters, expected to grow potentially now to a Category 3 hurricane approaching Bermuda and expected to trigger rip currents and winds all along the East Coast. Ernesto struck Puerto Rico as a tropical storm with powerful winds and flooding rains, knocking out power to nearly half the island, more than 700,000 customers without power tonight. Nearly a foot of rain in some places, the La Plata River overflowing, washing out roads. Puerto Rico, as you know, is still not fully recovered from Hurricane Maria back in 2017. And tonight they are now reeling from another blow. We have the new track of Ernesto as it barrels north in the Atlantic. Meteorologist Cecily Tynan is standing by, and ABC's Ike Ejiochi leading us off from Puerto Rico tonight.
Tonight, Ernesto is now officially a hurricane and growing stronger by the hour. After battering Puerto Rico, the images still coming in. Ernesto dumping nearly a foot of rain in spots. Rivers raging over their banks. Some villages reportedly cut off. Powerful winds gusting above 85 miles per hour, knocking down trees all over the island and knocking out power to more than 700,000 homes and businesses by midday.
Puerto Rico dealing with the effects of Ernesto all day long, with crews working to clear streets filled with downed trees, just like this one.
When did you lose power?
Yesterday.
Natalia Brito and her family now staying with relatives who have a generator.
I'm hoping the energy will come back soon, so that's my only hope.
In Cabo Rojo, they needed heavy equipment to clear this road so emergency vehicles could get through. The system hitting the Leeward Islands with heavy rain and howling wind. From the Virgin Islands to Guadeloupe. In Saint Martin, this cargo ship breaking away, drifting in the bay. Back in Puerto Rico, the trauma from 2017's Hurricane Maria still fresh in the minds of so many here. The Category 4 storm decimating the island. 7 years later, Puerto Rico's power grid still hasn't fully recovered.
David, as Ernesto continues to move away from Puerto Rico, we're far from out of the woods here. The main power provider, Luma, says it's prioritizing restoring power to hospitals, water and sewage facilities, but there's still hundreds and thousands of people here without power and no word on when it'll be restored. David?
Ike Ejiochi and our team in Puerto Rico tonight. Ike, thank you. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Cecily Tynan from our Philadelphia station, WPVI, back with us tonight. Cecily, always great to have you. Take us through the new track tonight.
Well, thank you, David. Hurricane Ernesto, it's pushing away from Puerto Rico, taking its rain with it. It's a Category 1 hurricane now, but it's expected to intensify very quickly. So here's the track, becoming a major Category 3 hurricane by Friday. Its closest point to Bermuda Friday night into Saturday as a Cat 2, dropping as much as 9 inches of rain, causing flash flooding. For the East Coast, Ernesto will bring high surf and rip currents all the way from Florida to Maine. So the spaghetti plots show there's high pressure in the Atlantic. There's a trough in the east. That's what steers Ernesto out to sea. But that trough also brings stormy weather to the northeast this weekend. Tonight, that same system bringing storms to the Midwest. Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, all dealing with a threat of damaging winds and hail. And David, that will continue into tomorrow.
Cecily Tynan of WPVI. Cecily, say hello to everyone at Action News for us. Thank you. The other major story tonight, the U.S. economy and inflation. Some good news today. For the first time since early in President Biden's presidency, inflation dropping to below 3% now. Consumer prices rose 2.9% in July compared to a year ago, below 3% for the first time now since March of 2021. What the report today shows about prices from groceries to cars and what this could all mean with a potential rate cut from the Fed now on the horizon. Here's ABC senior White House correspondent Selena Wang tonight.
Tonight, promising news on the economy, the inflation rate cooling, falling below 3% for the first time in 3 years since early in President Biden's presidency. Consumer prices rising 2.9% in July compared to a year ago. The cost of used cars and trucks, medical care and airfare down. And Americans may finally get some relief at the grocery checkout. Those prices rising by only 1.1% from last year. The president saying it's proof his policies are working.
The U.S. beat inflation.
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
The news comes just weeks before the Fed prepares to hold a key meeting, already signaling a rate cut could come as soon as September. That could affect interest rates for mortgages, credit cards, and car loans. And tonight, the White House is saying that there's more work to be done, that prices are still too high for many Americans. Biden has made clear that lowering costs for Americans is a top priority for the last few months of his presidency. That will be the focus of his event tomorrow in Maryland, and Vice President Harris will be right there with him. David?
Selena Wang at the White House tonight. Selena, thank you. And even with this welcome news on inflation, the economy will obviously be front and center in the race for president. 83 days now until the election. 2 new polls out tonight. A Pew poll showing Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump by just 1 point. A new Fox News poll showing Donald Trump leading Harris by 1 point. Obviously, this race is a dead heat. Former President Trump in North Carolina today, a key battleground with a speech on the economy. And the attacks again turning personal against Vice President Harris. Harris set to deliver her economic speech later this week. Rachel Scott on the campaign trail again tonight.
Tonight, under pressure to focus on issues, not personal attacks, Donald Trump's campaign arranging a formal speech in North Carolina to address the most important issue for voters, the economy.
Does anyone here feel richer under Kamala Harris than Crooked Joe than you were during the Trump administration? Is anything less expensive under Kamala Harris and Crooked Joe?
It comes on the same day that new report shows inflation is cooling, now at its lowest level in 3 years. But the reality is many Americans are still feeling the pinch, Trump taking aim.
Inflation is destroying our country. It's destroying our families. We will target everything from car affordability to housing affordability to insurance costs to supply chain issues to the price of prescription drugs. I will instruct my cabinet that I expect results within the first 100 days or much sooner than that.
Neither Trump nor Vice President Kamala Harris have presented many specifics on their economic plans. Trump has promised to eliminate taxes on Social Security benefits for seniors and on tips. Harris has announced she wants to end taxes on tips, too, and also raise the minimum wage.
She's doing a plan. You know, she's going to announce it this week, maybe. She's waiting for me to announce it so she can copy it. Like, remember, a couple of days ago? And we will have no tax on tips. I said that was my plan.
Trump has been facing pressure from fellow Republicans to tone down his personal attacks, with Kamala Harris rising in the polls, now leading in key battlegrounds. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
And the one thing Republicans have to stop doing, quit whining about her. I want this campaign to win. But the campaign is not going to win talking about crowd sizes. It's not going to win talking about what race Kamala Harris is. It's not going to win talking about whether she's dumb.
But today, Trump ignored that advice, lashing out at Harris again and again.
She's not smart. She's not intelligent.
Even mocking her laugh.
What happened to her laugh? I haven't heard that laugh in about a week. That's why they keep her off the stage. That's why she's disappeared. That's the laugh of a crazy person, I will tell you, if you haven't known it. It's a crazy. She's crazy.
Harris hasn't disappeared. She just completed a 5-state battleground swing, speaking to massive crowds with her new running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Still the message tonight from Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, let Trump be Trump.
To the people who say that Donald Trump should do something different, they had an opportunity to make Donald Trump do something different by challenging him over 3 separate primaries, every single one of which he won. So I think that Donald Trump has earned the right to run the campaign that he wants to run.
So let's bring in Rachel Scott with us again tonight. And Rachel, tonight, Tim Walz says he's now ready to debate J.D. Vance.
Exactly, David. Tonight we are learning that Governor Tim Walz has officially accepted the invitation from CBS to debate Senator J.D. Vance on October 1st. Vance has long said he's looking forward to that debate, but tonight no word on whether or not he's accepting this invitation. And of course, David, I don't need to remind you, but the very first presidential debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump will take place right here on ABC News on September 10th, David.
Not long from now. Rachel Scott with us tonight. Rachel, thank you. We continue with the news tonight into the war in Ukraine, and tonight the Ukrainian military attacking multiple airfields inside Russia, taking dozens of Russian troops prisoner. This evening, the video showing them in a courtyard blindfolded, and Putin, who has been caught off guard by this offensive, now promising to retaliate. Here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell now.
Tonight, the moment a Ukrainian drone slams into a Russian military airfield, seen in video verified by ABC News, part of the largest ever combined attack on air bases in Russia since the start of the war. 4 Russian airfields, some hundreds of miles from the border, and at least one housing MiG fighter jets were reportedly hit by long-range drones. On the ground, Ukraine pressing its surprise offensive on Russian soil, catching the Kremlin off guard and seizing hundreds of square miles. Now, another region of Russia also declaring a state of emergency. More than 200,000 civilians told to evacuate their homes, with thousands of Ukrainian troops having crossed the border. Releasing images of more than 30 captured soldiers, their eyes blindfolded with yellow tape. Ukrainian officials telling ABC News the video was filmed in Kursk, Russia. Ukraine says it's taken over 100 Russian fighters captive just in the last day. The Kremlin tonight claiming it's stopping the advance, killing hundreds of enemy fighters. But today, Zelensky insisting they are still advancing in a number of directions.
David, the longer this goes on, the more embarrassing it is for Putin. Ukraine rubbing salt into the wound by opening a hotline for Russian residents who now want to evacuate to Ukraine. But a senior Russian military official now vowing to launch an all-out offensive. In other words, David, this is far from a done deal.
Ian Pannell with us again tonight here. Thanks, Ian. We turn now to the Israel-Hamas war, and tonight a devastating attack in southern Gaza. And it comes on the eve of high-stakes ceasefire talks, again aimed at trying to halt this war and to get the hostages out. ABC's Soufi Burridge in Tel Aviv again tonight.
On the eve of critical ceasefire negotiations, which the US hopes could dial down tension across the region and maybe avert a retaliatory strike from Iran on Israel for 2 assassinations, tonight, multiple casualties streaming into this hospital in southern Gaza. Mohammed overcome by grief and clutching the birth certificates of his newly born twins. They were just 3 days old when they were killed, along with Mohammed's wife, when an Israeli shell hit the family home, according to a local doctor. The Biden administration again calling on Hamas and Israel to reach a deal.
There is no more time to waste.
Tonight, an Israeli official saying Prime Minister Netanyahu has expanded the mandate of his negotiating team. But earlier, Hamas indicating it will not formally attend, saying tomorrow's talk should be about implementing a framework deal Hamas says it accepted months ago. Lee Siegel's brother, Keith, one of 8 American hostages still held in Gaza, last seen speaking under duress in a video released by Hamas. Lee saying the time for a deal is now.
Time is up. Close this agreement immediately, and we move on to trying to rebuild our country.
And David, new insight tonight from US officials who say it can take negotiators weeks to exchange messages with Yahya Sinwar, the alleged mastermind of the October 7 terror attack, who is hiding in Gaza and has the deciding vote for Hamas. And that clearly complicates the talks. David?
All right, Tom, Soufi Burridge in Tel Aviv. Tom, thank you. Back here in the U.S. tonight, the urgent manhunt for an escaped killer who broke free from guards in a hospital parking lot near Durham, North Carolina, and where they think tonight he could now be. Here's Faith Abube.
Tonight, after an exhaustive search for that escaped convicted murderer in North Carolina, authorities say they believe Ramon Alston has fled the Hillsborough area.
We feel pretty comfortable from a search standpoint that offender Alston is not in the immediate vicinity.
Officials suspending their ground search efforts and asking for the public's help, raising the reward for information leading to Alston's capture to $35,000. Alston breaking free in this hospital parking lot yesterday morning. Armed guards were transporting him to a medical appointment. His handcuffs and waist chain still on, but his leg restraints removed. The Orange County Sheriff saying he went to school with Alston's father and has known the fugitive since birth.
He's been involved in criminal activity since he was a juvenile. He's extremely cagey, he's extremely dangerous, and he has nothing to lose.
Alston was serving a life sentence for killing one-year-old Malia Williams in a random shooting in 2015. Her family telling ABC News they're displeased with the Department of Public Safety and their efforts to keep Alston in custody or lack thereof. And David, authorities say a hospital surveillance camera did capture part of Alston's escape, but it wasn't enough to show exactly what happened because the convicted killer was, quote, moving too quickly. David.
All right, Faith Abube with us again tonight. Thank you, Faith. One more note overseas from Russia tonight reports another U.S. citizen has been arrested in Moscow. Russian news agencies say American Joseph Tater is accused of attacking a police officer in a hotel. He's already been sentenced to 15 days administrative detention for, quote, petty hooliganism. He faces a more serious charge now of assaulting an officer with a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison if convicted. When we come back here tonight, the search for a missing mother in Virginia. Authorities now say her husband waited 5 days before telling police she was gone. And tonight we remember the beloved founder of Famous Amos cookies and how it all started. Tonight, authorities are searching for a missing mother in Manassas Park, Virginia. Police say Mamta Kaffelbot vanished from her home 2 weeks ago. Her husband reporting her missing 5 days after she was last seen, according to authorities. Her husband now pleading for her return. When we come back here tonight, remembering the man behind Famous Amos cookies in a moment. To the Index, and we learned today that the beloved founder of Famous Amos cookies has died. Wallace Amos Jr., Wally as he was called. His family says he died peacefully after battling dementia. He created Famous Amos cookies using his aunt's recipe. Before cookies, he was a Hollywood talent agent, baking as a hobby. Marvin Gaye and Helen Reddy actually gave him the money to help get the business started in 1975. Wally Amos was 88. When we come back here tonight, America Strong, the remarkable moment at the front door of the school. Showing up for the little girl starting second grade. Tonight, the extraordinarily moving moment, a community coming together to honor a beloved father and deputy. This is Tactical Medic Deputy Gonzalo Galvez with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. They called him Gonzo, a Medal of Valor recipient not once, but twice, conducting hundreds of helicopter air rescues, nearly 25 years on the force. Diagnosed in November with gastric cancer, it was just days ago, after a brave battle, cancer took Deputy Galvez's life. Today was his 7-year-old daughter Gia's first day of second grade, and Deputy Galvez's fellow deputies were determined to be there, just as her dad would have been. Standing right outside the school as Deputy Galvez's family walked in, his wife Raquel, his 11-year-old son Gavin, and Gia holding a photo of her father. Walking down the line, that daughter hugging each of the deputies. And then after, a helicopter flyover, the very same one her father saved so many lives in. Tonight, his wife telling us her husband never missed the first day of school, and for his brothers to stand together in his place meant a lot to her and her children. And tonight here, Sergeant Kamal Ahmad and Deputy Galvez's team.
Hi, David. We stepped in as his family and did that for him. It was an honor to be there and let her know that we're always there for her.
Tremendous opportunity, getting to see the smile on his daughter's face.
He was definitely a mentor to myself and a leader on our team.
It just won't be the same without him. So,
Gonzo was a really good guy to work around.
No doubt her dad is beaming. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.